April 24th, 2023 marked the 108th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, during which 1.5 million Armenians were killed at the hands of the government of Ottoman Turkey. This year, Armenians and non-Armenians alike gathered at the crossroads of the world, Times Square in New York, on Sunday, April 23rd, to remember the victims of the first genocide of 20th century. 108th anniversary of Armenian Genocide commemoration began with welcoming remarks by Masters of Ceremonies Armen Makamber, Shatel Nazri, and Tiran Jebedjian. After a moment of silence to remember the victims of genocide, Shatel Nazri invited children of Holy Martyrs Armenian Day School to sing American and Armenian national anthems. His Eminence Archbishop Anushavan Tanelian, Primate of Eastern Prelacy of the Armenian Apostolic Church of America, read the invocation.
For over a century, our forefathers, and many of us in our own lifetime too, have lived and marched through the valley of painful sorrow, expecting that the perpetrators and their descendants, realizing the scale of their inhuman acts, would acknowledge the severity of their crimes, apologize for them, and make retribution. Unfortunately, instead of narrowing the abyss of misfortune, they have been widening it by denial of their audacious deeds and distorting history. Moreover, in the last couple of years, the world has been witnessing continuous death and annihilation threats by Turkey and its ally Azerbaijan against the Republic of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and Armenia. Amid this gloom and uncertainty, we are comforted, O Lord, that your providential care has never ceased to shower upon your children, the people of Mount Ararat, the hosting land of Noah's Ark. We are grateful, O Lord, for your Spirit has never energized our dreams to walk from the death marches of Deir Zor to the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Followed by Reverend Richard Shackle, Vicar of Holy Cross Armenian Catholic Church in Little Falls, New Jersey, who led the audience in a prayer.
For 108 years, there have been those who have tried to reshape the truth of the Armenian Genocide because they have found it an inconvenient truth. And so we pray, Lord, we gather here today in your light, the light which exposes all truth. Shine your light on the truth of the Armenian Genocide.
Aram Bashian, from the Armenian Evangelical Church of New York City, made remarks with passionate call of 1915, never again.
When I say 1915, never again, I am declaring that I will not allow them to perpetuate genocide of a different kind. One of my heart, my mind, and my soul. When I say 1915, never again, I commit to supporting pro-Armenian businesses and initiatives, as well as every organization here that supports the fight for truth and lobbies for reparations in the face of opposition and deception. We are stronger together. When I say 1915, never again, I am declaring that I will not allow a victim mentality to fearfully label friends and even some family members as Odars just because they might not be as Armenian as me. William Saroyan was right when he said that whenever two Armenians meet, they will create a new Armenia. He didn't say what kind of Armenian, for being Armenian is as much a state of mind and emotion as it is a 23andMe result, if not more. As a Christian Armenian, when I say 1915, never again, I choose to say Dervo Ormia and forgive as Christ forgives me, and in this way resist the urge to drink from the same cup of hate that was poured out against us. When I say 1915 never again, it means that I will teach future generations the truth about what happened and honor the memory of those who died. To love and not fear, I will pass on our Christian faith as well as our language, our sharagans, our dance, our food, our music, our art, and every other aspect of our rich culture.
As a true supporter of Armenian cause and a friend of Armenian people, New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez, in his strong worded speech, called for justice for the victims of Armenian genocide and strongly condemned the ethnic cleansing in Artsakh, an ongoing aggression against Armenia by Azerbaijan, backed by Turkey.
108 years ago, the Ottoman Turks began a systematic campaign to exterminate the Armenian population. Through killings, through forced deportation, through starvation and untold brutality, there is a name for such intentional, horrific violence targeting one people simply because who they are. And that word is genocide. What the Turks did is an irrefutable historical fact. The American ambassador to the Ottoman Empire at the time described the Turkish authorities' deportation orders for Armenians as, quote, a death warrant to a whole race, that the Turks at that time made no particular attempt to conceal. And yet still today in Turkey, at the scene of the crime, the Turkish government not only denies the Ottoman Turks committed genocide, they prosecute and threaten anyone who dares speak the truth. But no matter how much money the Turkish government has spent on PR firms, they cannot cover up this crime. No matter what they say, the murder of 1.5 million Armenians was not just a consequence of the First World War. No matter who they condemn as traitors or enemies of the Turkish state, the world knows the truth. We know the truth because of the years and decades of hard work of everyone gathered here today. Fighting the denial of the Armenian genocide is not only about the past, it is also about the present. Despite the impressive accomplishments that you have all achieved working together, there is so much more that needs to be done. Because unfortunately, violence threatens the Armenian people again. Right now, Azerbaijan is illegally blockading the Armenian people living in Artsakh. Azerbaijan's 2020 war already uprooted close to 100,000 Armenians from their homes in Nagorno-Karabakh. 6,500 people have died. Now Armenians there face an acute humanitarian crisis, energy shortages, medical shortages, food shortages, water shortages. And even after more than a century of fighting for justice for the genocide at the hands of the Ottoman Turks, Armenians again face the threat of ethnic cleansing. I have to be honest with you. The United States response has been absolutely unacceptable, which is why when Secretary Blinken was before my committee, I pushed him for more humanitarian assistance to help the victims in Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, and got him to commit to making sure that humanitarian assistance reaches Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, because we cannot just say never again and not mean it. You must put it into words and action. But incredibly, it's not just that the United States has not been meeting the full humanitarian needs that I think we should. Our government is still sending security assistance to Azerbaijan. How on earth can the United States justify sending any type of money, security or otherwise, to the regime in Baku? It is mind-boggling that that can happen. We have seen a video catching Azerbaijani forces killing unarmed Armenian soldiers in cold blood. We have reports of Azerbaijani soldiers sexually assaulting and mutilating an Armenian female soldier. And yet over and over again, the Department of State has waived a ban on security assistance to Azerbaijan. We should not be in bed with the government of Azerbaijan as they commit such atrocities. It's inexcusable, it's morally repugnant, and it's got to stop.
Senator, what the United States government does not do that it must do in order to open Lachin corridor and to ensure safety and security of Armenian population in Artsakh?
One, in the immediate sense, it has to provide humanitarian assistance that can get through the Lachin corridor. Two, it has to pressure Azerbaijan just to open up the corridor. They shouldn't be in any way creating this humanitarian consequence. And then three, they have to pressure Azerbaijan to allow the people in Artsakh and to stop being hostile to Armenia and its own territorial borders if they want a pathway forward for a better relationship for the United States. If we make that clear, then we can have a different day tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Master of Ceremony Chantal Nazri shared her remarks on a theme of the event.
The denial of the Armenian genocide is symbolically the denial of every genocide. Therefore, we must all stand together to condemn the perpetrators who have to publicly acknowledge their crimes to restore dignity to their human conscience and governments, and to restore dignity to the victims and their families who have the right to truth and the right to justice. As Armenian Americans, we must continue the fight for global recognition, not only for the Armenian genocide, but for all genocides to pronounce never again. We stand here today as descendants of survivors who want to say thank you, America, for being the first nation to alert the world about the Armenian genocide.
On this year's important event also was present Director of the Program of Peace Building and Rights at Columbia University Institute for Study of Human Rights, David L. Phillips. He was recognized for his outstanding dedication and efforts in human rights and justice and in recognition of the Armenian genocide, and was presented with an award. In conjunction with his current role at Columbia University, he spearheaded an Artsakh Atrocities Project, which documents human rights violations committed by Azerbaijan.
Today, there's more we must do to prevent a second Armenian genocide which is underway in Artsakh. No more waivers of Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act, which bans any kind of assistance to the Azeri government. No more arms sales to Turkey. No F-35s, no F-16s, no weapons of destruction that they'll use to kill their own citizens and to target Armenians. The pattern of Turkic killings and abuse must stop. Azerbaijani forces attacked Artsakh on September 27, 2020. Using armed drones, heavy artillery, rockets, and special forces, they were backed by Turkish military and mercenaries, including up to 2,000 Islamist jihadis from Syria and Libya, who were promised a bounty for each Armenian that they killed. Within days of Azerbaijan's attack, Columbia University launched a research and documentation project on human rights and foreign terrorist activities in Artsakh. The project draws on a range of credible sources in cooperation with the Artsakh Human Rights Ombudsman. Our research documented Azerbaijan's systematic effort to drive Armenians from their homeland through killings, ethnic cleansing, and deportations. More than 1,400 Armenian fighters and civilians died as a result of Azerbaijan and Turkish operations in 2020. And more than 100,000 people were displaced. Let's be clear about the motive. The overall goal of Azerbaijan was, and still remains, the cultural erasure of Armenians. On December 12, 2022, Azerbaijan blocked the Lachin corridor, which connects Artsakh to Armenia. Blocking the corridor left 120,000 Armenians without life-saving medication and health care. Crimes against Armenians did not occur in the fog of war. Ilham Aliyev stipulated Azerbaijan's policy in a public presentation on December 24th, 2022. He said, "Our work should focus on a single concept and policy, our return." Now the Great Return Program for Karabakh is being implemented. Inshallah, there will come a time when we will develop a second Great Return Program to Greater Azerbaijan. We'll drive them away like dogs. It is clear from both Aliyev's actions and his hate speech that what I've come to call a second Armenian genocide is underway in Artsakh.
New York Senator Chuck Schumer, a true friend of Armenian people, who has attended the Armenian Genocide commemoration events for the past 2 decades, spoke about his own grandmother, who was killed by Nazis during World War II, and connected the Armenian Genocide to all other crimes against humanity that followed. He stressed that genocide unrecognized is bound to happen again.
This commemoration is also special to me because the stories I have heard from survivors of the Metz-Yekern, they resonate with me on a personal note. As a boy, I heard stories about my great-grandmother. She was a well-known woman in the town in western Ukraine called Chortkov. The Nazis came in. They asked my great-grandmother to gather all of her children, grandchildren, and relatives on the porch. Over 35 people gathered, aged 85 to 4 months. And the Nazis said, "You're coming with us." She replied, "We will not leave." And they machine gunned down every last one of them. Every last one of them. The Metz-Yekern may have been the first genocide of the 20th century, but it certainly was not the last. And while the specifics of the atrocities may vary, every genocide shares something important in common. The world looked away, turned a blind eye, refused to reckon with the evil reality that was happening. Over the last century, millions have suffered as a result of the lessons unlearned and unremembered from the Metz-Yekern, from Stalin's Ukraine, to Hitler's Germany, to Pol Pot's Cambodia, to the Balkans, Rwanda, Sudan, Myanmar, and many beyond. These atrocities are more than just a stain on the nations or their continent. They're a stain on humanity. The act of remembering is exactly that, an act, a continuing and ongoing action, something we must keep doing to ensure victims of the Metz-Yekern did not die in vain. We owe it to these victims. We owe it to the Armenian nation. We owe it to all of humanity to remember, because a genocide that's not properly remembered always leads to another. That is why for years I sponsored Senate resolutions and called on American presidents of both parties to finally name the Metz-Yekern for what it was, a genocide. And finally, these tireless efforts commemorated in a huge milestone and success. It's good to have the majority leader on your side. Myself and Bob Menendez, chair of Foreign Relations, told President Biden he had to recognize the genocide on behalf of the American government, on behalf of humanity, and it happened because of you and all your hard work. You should be so proud.
Senator, just one word for Voice of Armenians TV New York. What do you think the United States government should do that it's not already doing to open Lachin corridor and ensure the safety and security of Armenians in Artsakh?
Put much more pressure on Azerbaijan and on Turkey, their ally. Turkey is not a friend of the United States in so many ways. Erdogan is an evil and brutal dictator. We must put pressure on both to open the Lachin corridor.
Thank you very much. Robert Avetisian, Artsakh's representative to Washington, thanked the United States for recognizing Armenian genocide. he specifically outlined an ongoing violence and humanitarian crisis inflicted by Azerbaijan on the people of Artsakh, including 4 months-long total blockade.
The evil of genocide still exists. A century later, we Armenians are again at gunpoint. 3 years ago, Artsakh, an ancient piece of the Armenian homeland, has been attacked and torn apart by a full-scale aggression. Named Barik Azerbaijan, with support of Turkey and terrorist organizations from Middle East, unleashed a brutal war against our fledgling democracy. The aggression was marked by medieval cruelty against Armenian prisoners of war and civilian hostages, and other grave violations of international humanitarian law. Indiscriminate shelling of communities and civilian objects throughout the Republic, targeted destruction of our churches, hospitals, and schools led to numerous casualties among the population and almost collapsed our civilian infrastructure. The war ended in November of 2020, with almost 70% of Artsakh occupied by Azeri and Turkish troops, but aggression never stopped. On the contrary, it has expanded on the Republic of Armenia proper, disrupted normal life and economic activity in dozens of towns and villages. And if that was not enough, last December, the autocratic Baku orders to block the road, the only road that connects Artsakh with Armenia and the rest of the world. For months, the lives of 120,000 Artsakhis, including 30,000 children, and thousands of elderly and people with various disabilities have been severely worsening. For months, people cannot reconnect with their families. Medical patients, many in critical condition, are suffering in hospitals from lack of supplies and treatment outside the Republic. People die as a result. Grocery shops and markets run low on basic food. Energy rationing and disruptions of communications have become another new reality for us. Today, actually, we heard in other news that Aliyev ordered his thugs to install a checkpoint on one of the few remaining connections that were used when it was a previously arranged movement of troops or people. They're installing a checkpoint to what they see as one of the final steps to isolate Artsakh from the rest of the world. We all can guess what tragedy this can lead to if let happening. This is a humanitarian crisis caused not by economic downturn, global pandemic, or natural disaster. It is a political disaster. The dictator in Azerbaijan thinks he has the right to decide who can live and who must starve to death. It is a political disaster if in the 21st century, the world witnesses inhuman cruelty by a repressive regime towards people whose only crime is their desire to live in freedom, dignity, and democracy. The Genocide Convention describes the crime as acts of intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. The ongoing blockade of Artsakh has a clear genocidal intent. Its masterminds want the indigenous Armenians to have two choices: either to leave their historic homeland or to stay and die from starvation, cold, or diseases. These are the choices that we have to fight with our only choice: to continue our struggle by collective efforts in order to prevent the second Armenian genocide.
Among the speakers was Alejandra Lynn Gastelum, senator from Mexico, who came for the first time this year to participate in the Armenian Genocide commemoration. Senator Gastelum, along with Armenian Mexican political activist Armen Yeritzian, was instrumental in adopting a document in the Mexican Senate on February 8, 2023, recognizing the Armenian Genocide and highlighting the importance of respect for universal human rights. Her speech was translated by historian Vartan Mateosian.
Por eso, el 8 de febrero de este año 2023,
therefore, even though there are forces that try to deny what happened, if we believe in decency, solidarity, justice, and the importance of doing what is right, even when doing what is right is most difficult, it is our duty to recognize and commemorate this genocide.
It is our duty to prevent that tragedies like this are ignored, forgotten, and hidden under the sand of time and the complicity of silence. That's why, on February 8, 2023, the Senate of Mexico recognized officially the Armenian Genocide, because we believe that decency, justice, and solidarity are principles that must prevail in the relations between the peoples of the earth. Because when we raise the voice to acknowledge crimes like this, we make an appeal for permanent attention to not forget that when hate becomes a state weapon, nothing is impossible or unthinkable for the darkest areas of human spirits. Therefore, to keep silence and fall to the pressures of those who ask us to keep silence mean to renounce the truth, to dialogue, and to the opportunity of healing the wounds of the past that still remain open. Silence and denial may lead any people to march again through the desert, to be concentrated in a camp, to be expelled from their land, to be humiliated, and to be assassinated through thirst and fatigue.
Another big supporter and friend of Armenians, New Jersey Congressman Frank Pallone Jr., who has visited Armenia and Artsakh on numerous occasions, sent a written statement, which was read by Chantal Nazri. In his statement, Congressman Pallone condemned in strong terms the ongoing Azerbaijani ethnic cleansing in Artsakh and aggression against Armenia.
Unfortunately, the inhumanity of the genocide remains a current topic given the gruesome, unprovoked war perpetrated against Artsakh in 2020 and the ongoing blockade of the Lachin corridor by Azerbaijan that is now going into its 4th month. The blockade has caused several shortages of food, medical supplies, drinking water, and other essentials, creating a dire humanitarian crisis for the 120,000 people living in Artsakh. Unfortunately, the current international strategy to reopen the Lachin corridor is simply not working. Despite clearly documented evidence of the blockade and the tragic impact it is having on innocent civilians, President Aliyev continues to lie to the United States and to the international community by stating that there is no blockade. Azeri President Aliyev is not subtle about alluding to the Armenian genocide when discussing Artsakh, nor has he attempted to hide the ongoing deadly incursions into Armenian territory. The Aliyev regime is taking premeditated steps to remove the indigenous Armenian population from Artsakh and deprive them of the opportunity to live freely, democratically, and with dignity in the land of their ancestors, a clear sign of ethnic cleansing that we cannot ignore. The United States has a critical role to play in putting an end to these aggressions and expansionist desires by helping the innocent civilians of Artsakh to live in their lands without the constant fear of attack. That is why I was glad we had almost 70 members of Congress who joined me in the letter to the Appropriations Committee a couple of weeks ago. This important letter strongly urged $50 million in humanitarian funding for the people of Artsakh, $100 million in assistance to Armenia to bolster its democratic gains and strengthen its economic growth, and to halt U.S. security assistance to Azerbaijan given the menacing and deadly actions they continue to take in the region.
Diran Jebejian read the statement by New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. In his statement, the senator stressed the importance of recognizing the Armenian genocide by U.S. and condemned Azerbaijan's aggression against Armenia and Artsakh.
And I'm honored to share a few words with you on this solemn occasion. The tireless advocacy by people here today and efforts like the Times Square Armenian Genocide Commemoration have pushed us to recognize historical facts and stand up to injustice. In 2019, we in Congress passed a resolution affirming the facts, and 2 years ago, President Joe Biden did his part in righting a historical wrong by recognizing the Armenian Genocide. I was honored to be a part of his overdue effort to ensure the United States stands on the right side of history. We must renew our determination to speak out against unconscionable atrocities so they never happen again. This is why I've joined you in criticizing Azerbaijan's inhumane blockade of the humanitarian corridor in Artsakh, and I share concerns for the humanitarian plight of communities at risk. I will continue to do everything I can in the Senate to make sure the protection of human rights is an integral part of U.S. diplomacy. Thank you for being here and standing up for truth and justice, Senator Cory Booker.
Tiranje Bejian also presented a proclamation from the mayor of the city of New York, Eric Adams, declaring April 24 Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day of the city of New York. Every Armenian Genocide commemoration event at Times Square has been organized by Knights and Daughters of Vartan, of course, with the support of other major Armenian organizations. In her remarks, Grand Matron of Daughters of Vartan, Gloria Korkoyan, highlighted a century of work Knights and Daughters of Vartan have done to help Armenian people rise and establish communities around the world.
The Knights of Vartan was founded during the Armenian Genocide. The primary aims were to champion the Armenian cause, to alleviate the suffering of the Armenian people, to ensure the safety of displaced Armenians, and to train leaders to serve the religious, cultural, educational, and charitable needs of the Armenian people. Our mission as Knights and Daughters of Vartan today is as relevant as ever. The 1915 Armenian Genocide commemorations take place every year in all Armenian communities across the United States and the world. We will not forget. It is our duty to educate our children and grandchildren about the martyred saints of 1915. Today, we observe the memory of 1.5 million Armenian saints of 1915, the heroes of Nagorno-Karabakh and the heroes of Artsakh. May their memories inspire us to take justified pride in our origin and heritage and to uphold the Armenian faith, which for centuries has proven to be the mainstay of our existence.
Following her remarks, the Grand Commander of Knights of Vartan, Hunan Arshakian, asked the audience what is the cost of freedom and spoke about the price of freedom the Armenian nation has paid during the genocide and today in Artsakh and Armenia.
What does freedom mean to you? And what are you willing to do to keep it? Our ancestors gave their lives for it. On this 108th commemoration of the Armenian Genocide, we remember our martyred saints who gave their lives for our country and faith. We all lost beloved members in the genocide. And we also think about the fellow Armenians today in Armenia and Artsakh, right now, who are still suffering or losing their lives, all fighting for the right to exist, the right to live as Armenians and be free from ethnic cleansing. The Knights of Vartan is now in the second century of service to preserve and defend the Armenian homeland, church, and culture through its chapters across the United States and its worldwide charitable programs. Those of us here in New York and all Armenians around the world carry the same responsibility to keep our people and our heritage alive, to tell our story. I thank all of you who work so hard to help our people and homeland thrive. I personally see this as my life calling, as a son of Armenia. We must never forget our ancestors' sacrifice, and we must never stop serving our people and fighting for the truth and for the freedom, now for our children and grandchildren, not just to survive, but to be victorious and strong for centuries to come.
The musical portion of the event was provided by Huiset Ensemble, performing several patriotic and traditional folk songs. Tiranje Bejian then announced the winners of the Knights and Daughters of Vartan annual essay and visual arts contest.
For this year's Knights and Daughters of Vartan annual essay and visual arts contest, high school students around America were asked to listen to survivor testimonies offered through the USC Shoah Foundation and describe through writing or an art form how an Armenian genocide survivor's experience can serve as an inspiration to make meaningful change in today's society. The following were the winners of the contest, and we want to acknowledge them. First place, Nara Zakarian, in the form of an essay from Tampa, Florida. In second place was Emily Maramont, in the form of an essay from San Francisco, California. In third place was Aiki Kasabian, in visual art from Los Angeles, California. And the runner-up this year was Emily Julfayan in visual art from Los Angeles, California. Please congratulate them.
The closing benediction was read by Reverend Father Metzrop Parsamian, Primate of the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church of America.
As the proud descendants of the genocide martyrs, united with our compatriots in the homeland, we accept that the duty to remember, to speak out, to preserve and defend now falls upon us. We all must shine with the light of our saintly genocide martyrs, so that the example of the Armenian people, living, departed, and yet to be born, will always be a light of truth, to honor the memory of our martyrs and to glorify you, O Lord our God. This is the power of the Spirit, the power of renewal, the power of faith, which gives the deepest meaning to our gathering today. It is your gift to us, O Lord, and through it we embrace the gift of God's love for all his children. May that forward-looking thought be in our hearts throughout the coming days, and let it guide our thoughts, words, and actions now and forever. Amen. Օրհնյալ կեղերուգի շնորհած սրբոհոգվույն երթայք խաղաղությամբ եւ դերն մեր Հիսուս Քրիստոս եղիցին ձեզ եւ ընդամենեսյանդ ամեն.
The 108th anniversary of Armenian Genocide event in Times Square came to conclusion, but the important work of worldwide recognition of the genocide continues. The only way to prevent future genocides from happening is to accept responsibility and learn from it. If we do not, it's bound to happen again.